Hey, friendo, Steve here.
And Larson.
And it's Wednesday. You know what that means. We're going to answer some of your questions. That's right. It's Ask Going in Raw. Larson, how do the people ask us questions if they want to get on this show, say, next Wednesday?
Well, that's a good question to me, and I have the answer for that one, Steve. If you're a YouTube channel member, what's today? Tuesday, we'll put up a question thread on the community tab on our YouTube channel. Going in Raw is youtube.com/Steven Larson. If you're a patron, $5 and up. Same deal. Steve will put the thread up. I guess I could do it too.
No, we all have our roles here at Going in Raw. I'm the question thread guy.
Yeah, and I put the questions in the thing, and that's when we answer them. So, yes, patreon.com/Steven Larson, youtube.com/Steven Larson, patron, memberships, respectively.
That's
how you
right.
Get your questions on the show.
Speaking of the thing, our first question comes from Timur Rahman. Says, what does a storyline have to do for it to jump the shark? And with everyone complaining about the finish to Jay versus Roman, do you think the Bloodline storyline has reached this stage? And if not, what does it need for it to do so? So, Larson, we have heard the complaint. I think mainly I've seen it, not necessarily from like our audience, our friendos, but like I saw it plenty out in the ether on social media.
Yeah.
The old Happy Days phrase. The phrase came from like a Happy Days episode where Fonzie literally was jet skiing. Yeah, water skiing, sorry. Jumped over a shark and people were like, that was stupid. The Happy Day sucks now.
Yeah.
It's no longer Happy Days.
I guess in that sense, a storyline from my perspective jumps the shark when it starts regularly breaking the rules that it set for itself and loses all sense of logic and common sense. When that happens, when seemingly random stuff is happening, utilizing the same characters we've grown accustomed to acting a certain way, that's when it jumps the shark for me. That's when I'm like, all right, you lost me here. I don't understand. You were telling a story. It was making sense. Now this stuff's happening, and you completely lost me. I don't think what we saw at SummerSlam would qualify based on that definition as jumping the shark. We don't know the exact details of Jimmy's motivation for turning on Jay, but there were some seeds planted prior to SummerSlam. If you go on social media, a lot of people are posting clips of promo segments where it's laying the groundwork for this to happen.
Yeah.
Is it illogical? No. Is it necessarily satisfying based on what we saw at SummerSlam? That's open to debate. I honestly still don't know how I feel about it. I don't know if I feel like it's a satisfying development in this storyline or not. I have to wait and see how it plays out before making that determination.
Yeah, no, I agree with you. I'll give you... Oh, I'm sorry. You look like you had...
No, go ahead.
So I'll give you a wrestling instance where I personally, as a fan, felt it jumped the shark. And it is very much in line with what your definition is for something jumping the shark. And that's when, at the end of WrestleMania 17, when Austin shook McMahon's hand, nothing in their relationship had ever led me to believe that Austin would be the type of person to do that. And in fact, they took that character change into a fairly surreal place with Austin suddenly becoming a comedy character without a lot of it'd be one thing if he was experiencing some sort of midlife crisis or, feeling the pressure was getting too much to him. But as we saw later on, McMahon was able to unlock, the old Stone Cold for the invasion angle. It just didn't make any sense. And at that point I was like, okay, the McMahon Austin thing is completely run out of steam. There was some entertaining stuff there to it.
Absolutely.
But I had completely lost, interest as like, oh, I care about Austin now. I think this is completely stupid.
You weren't the only one based on the ratings after that.
That's true. Yeah. A lot of people dropped out of watching the show. And to your point, I agree. I don't think that this has jumped the shark. I think that a lot of people, I do think that maybe, given that Night of Champions wasn't that long ago, when Jimmy really turned on, because that was when Roman and Solo had the tag title match, and Jimmy, really took Jay along with him and said, "Let's get out of here."
That's when Jimmy super kicked Roman. Yeah,
right,
yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And so, I mean, that was more recent than Roman's most recent title defense, which was at WrestleMania. Yeah. And so Jimmy's suddenly coming back to the Bloodline, if that's in fact what's going to happen. If there was more of a story beat that made sense either along the way or even at the actual show during the main event itself, then maybe the response would be a little bit different. But dude, is it just me, or have people been, a certain subset of fans, I feel like they've been chomping at the bit to declare this as being stale or having jumped the shark, and this was the first big opportunity, just like at WrestleMania, for them to say, "Oh no, Bloodline's jumped the shark." I feel like some people just a fumble. Yeah, people want it to happen to a degree.
I mean, if you look at the comments in our videos, you'll occasionally see someone leave a comment saying, "Oh, the storyline's gone on too long. Mm-hmm. This has grown boring. Mm-hmm. They're spinning their wheels at this point."
Yeah.
I don't agree with that assessment.
Even at its hottest, people say that.
Yeah, and maybe it's a situation where in WWE for the better part of 15 years, we didn't get three-year-long stories. We didn't get it.
We couldn't rely on that, yeah.
And so we, as fans of WWE's product, didn't grow accustomed to stories, unfolding over the course of many 36 months, if not more, at this juncture, the Bloodline. Yeah. And we're so Vince would bring something up, drop it. Mm-hmm. Stories seem like they're going somewhere. They'd culminate in a matter of weeks. Mm-hmm, yeah. I guess when you get used to watching something on TV, you get used to it, and something that's different than what you're used to, it might be jarring.
Yeah.
I don't know. I'm trying to find. I understand it's an entertainment. It's subjective. People's reactions to it, their assessment, their opinions on it. I understand that. Maybe not everybody likes 3-year-long stories.
Well,
that's their prerogative. I understand that completely.
Dude, there is also, and I think this is a valid criticism, the booking of the actual matches
is formulaic at this point. Yes,
they do follow a certain formula. Absolutely. We can predict, oh, here comes the ref bump, because every Bloodline match, Michael Hayes is going to toss in there a ref bump. And so that aspect of it also has been something that I think people, view as predictable and therefore, boring. This is getting, it's getting to be a bit much. Mm-hmm. And I think that's a valid criticism, but I do think that the actual story beats, removing the formulaic nature of the booking of the matches, the actual story beats, I think, have been pretty compelling. And for all I know, Friday is going to knock it out of the park, and it's going to go back to being compelling. I mean, a similar, narrative was painted. God, I'm trying to remember the last time they were like, "Oh, it's good. It's gone on too long." It was around the Sami Zayn, maybe post Sami, before Sami. I forget what it was.
And I think it was. I mean, even I thought before Sami Zayn got involved on a weekly basis, like, all right, this is kind of running out of steam a little bit. Where are they going to take this to keep this new and fresh?
That was definitely the case, yeah. And then they enter Sami Zayn, and it became that, and it was tension filled drama every week. So if they go back to a situation like that, it'll be interesting to see what they do on Friday, and hopefully they get it back, on track for at least. We're like, oh my gosh, this TV is tense every single week,
Yeah, exactly. I guess now that I answer a third part of Time War's question here, what is something that WWE could do with the Bloodline story that would, in fact, in our estimation, have the story jump the shark?
Oh man, what a I was just thinking about that as we were talking about that other.
Would it be for Jay now to swerve Jimmy and rejoin the Bloodline?
Yeah, I mean that'd be a good one
at that point.
Yeah, that'd be a good one, because Jay, for the longest time, I mean, it's been like, when is Jay gonna leave the Bloodline? And I mean, I don't know, man. Maybe maybe this is me being overly optimistic, but the idea that Jay needs to be a man alone, given that he was the guy who experienced the central trauma of Roman Reigns back in 2020, maybe this is a way to accomplish that. And who knows what that means for his story next. I mean, certainly they're going to do Jimmy Jay, but given that they've publicly advocated for a WrestleMania Jimmy versus Jay match,
that's a ways away.
That's a ways away. So maybe they're going to try to take a bunch of detours before they get to that point. I don't know. I mean, for all we know, at Payback, they'll do a rematch of, well, probably not. Roman doesn't do anything but big four matches, so I don't know what the situation's going to be. But yeah, Jay coming back on board the Bloodline would probably be a pretty good way to jump that shark. Yeah.
Yeah. Speaking of potential detours, let's answer this next question from Reaper Red. What would you rather? What would you rather? Cody versus Roman at WrestleMania, the Bloodline 4-way, and then have Cody and Seth. So Mania 40. Do you want Cody Roman main event, or do you want a Bloodline Fatal 4-way and then Cody challenge Seth for the World Heavyweight Championship?
Boy, that's a good one. I mean, look, if the qualifier is Cody finishes the story and beats Roman, then that's what I would prefer. That'd be my top thing. But if like it was like, hey, yeah, we don't know, you don't get to know what the outcome is. I'd prefer Cody versus Roman to wait until it was like the perfect storyline moment. Like I don't have much interest in a Bloodline 4-way. I don't know that does much.
The outcome is clear.
Yeah.
The only question is, does Roman stack Jimmy, Jay, and Solo?
Yeah, I know. I mean, if it's like everybody's on the outs with Roman and that's how he forces them back into the Bloodline, but then you have the same thing. It's a bunch of people who just don't want to be there.
Exactly.
I don't.
Backtracking. Yeah.
A Bloodline Fatal 4-way. Look, if they really booked a compelling story leading into it, where they were all like known as top contenders for the title, like Solo still, to me personally, has a long way to go before I see him in that way. But yeah, I mean, I would rather Cody versus Roman. I don't know what they're going to do Cody versus Seth, because Cody seemingly, like, I know he said, no, I wouldn't consider the World Heavyweight Championship a consolation prize, but it wouldn't be me finishing the story, which is a consolation prize. It's a
consolation title. I know.
Yeah.
I know. It is a consolation title, but he puts it that way. I know. There's kind of no way around it. Yeah. If he proclaimed publicly, finishing the story is winning the lineage title, which is now the undisputed title.
Mm-hmm, yeah.
Anything short of that is not finishing the story. Well, then the World Heavyweight Championship is kind of a consolation prize.
And the funny thing is, it doesn't even mean it's a consolation prize. It's a consolation prize to Cody. I think that they can really establish that World Heavyweight Championship as something special. Until Roman loses the title, he's always going to main event because he's got such a head start. I mean, this is a 3-year deal, and the storyline is probably the greatest story ever told in professional wrestling.
Yeah.
And so just by nature of that, I mean, it's going to be a runner-up title, but I think it can be a very, very compelling title all to itself. But to Cody, it is a consolation prize. I don't think for anybody else it needs to be, but I don't know, man. I don't even know why I know they're teasing it because Cody's on Raw and it's a natural tease to have. Mm-hmm. But how is this all going to play out? Like, either Seth's going to beat Cody and Cody doesn't. I don't know. I don't know how that plays out. I don't know.
I don't know either. But the second time now that Cody and Seth have crossed paths as it relates to the World Heavyweight Championship, which you don't think they would do that unless somewhere in the future they're going to have that match.
Yeah, I don't know.
And if they are leaving Roman's reign open-ended, whether it's to try to get The Rock for 40, 41, 42, 45, whatever the case may be, or they want him to break Bruno's record, they want him to at least top Hogan's record, for having for about 4 years. I don't know. We don't know. Yeah. I mean, the Fightful report, they pretty much said Reigns will lose it when he wants to lose it.
Yeah, right. Yeah.
So it's going to be open-ended. And you're right. If Cody faces Roman again, Cody has to win. And if that doesn't happen, don't do the match.
Yeah, I agree.
Don't do it. So if the only other option is the Bloodline Fatal 4-way and then Cody and Seth, then I guess that's the way you go. Even though for Cody, it's going to be the consolation title.
Well, if they try to tell a story that is compelling where Seth takes issue with Cody wanting Roman and not wanting the World Heavyweight Championship, maybe there's something they can go with there. But I mean, they're both good guys. I don't know. I don't know why they would tease this stuff unless they have something planned or maybe they're just thinking, well, it makes sense as to why they would, want to get at each other, but we are not going to do it anytime soon, and we'll figure it out down the line. Honestly, I don't know what they're doing.
I don't know either. While we're on the topic of Seth's title reign, Frozen Tape has a question. How do y'all feel about Seth's title run? Personally, I feel it's been mid because he hasn't evolved as a character. He's the same Seth before he won it.
Oh, he's a successful Seth. People love that Seth.
Yeah.
And
he's over huge.
None of his popularity has dwindled at all. In fact, I think he looks like $1 million with that title. He's a unique character. Number one, hats off to Seth Rollins for constantly reinventing himself within WWE. Mm-hmm. Incredibly difficult to do. And the history and lore that he's established in the company lends itself to all sorts of different great matchups there on Raw with that title. I think that it's been a distinct run away from what Roman's doing, and a pretty damn strong one. He's the guy. I think if you take the undisputed WWE title out of the equation, I think it's a top title run. I think it's, you're not gonna compete with the Bloodline, but in terms of feeling like a big deal, everybody on Raw except for Cody seemingly. Even Cody came out to confront him not this past time, but the last time.
Not this time.
So I don't know. People want it. The Judgment Day is basically breaking up because of it. So I don't know. It's a prize. I think it means a lot.
It was in some respects a bad hand to be dealt when they invent the title just so Raw has a top title.
Yeah, sure.
And on the other show, they have the belt literally called the Undisputed Championship.
Yeah.
If there's 2 world titles, then it's in dispute.
Yeah, there's
no undisputed champion. Yeah, exactly, so the fact that they call the SmackDown one the undisputed one, all right, top title. That's number one.
Yeah.
That's the top title in WWE. And it's, they put the belt on Seth first, so it wasn't someone who'd already lost to Roman, so it didn't feel immediately like an obvious consolation title. Mm-hmm. I've been pretty consistent in this. I feel like if they want the World Heavyweight Championship to feel on par, and this isn't in any way discrediting Seth's work. He's defended the title a bunch. He's put on a lot of really good matches. The way they booked that title on Raw, it feels important to Raw.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, sure.
But until a World Heavyweight Championship match, main events, pay-per-view, it's going to feel like the secondary world title. There's no way around it. Even if Roman's not on the card, have that title main event a show. But really, if Roman is involved in a tag match on the pay-per-view, add some weight to that World Heavyweight Championship. Have that match, especially if it's like a really marquee matchup. Have that match main event the pay-per-view. So it feels less like the secondary world title.
Is there anything besides that? Is there anything they could have done up until now from a storyline perspective beyond match placement on pay-per-views that you feel they could have done in order to make it feel like a top title?
Have it more obvious that Roman wanted it. So I think Heyman made one passing comment about, that title will look good with Roman and his other titles. Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. Otherwise, Roman hasn't mentioned it. Yeah, if it was on Roman's radar.
Yeah. You know what they need to not do? Because I saw that is this legit, the Survivor Series being bragging rights thing?
Oh, I didn't see that.
Okay. I saw this on Facebook, so it means nothing whatsoever.
Yeah.
But I think a whole bunch of people in the Friendoverse group on Facebook posted up there was like a poster, Seth and Roman said Survivor Series bragging rights, and everybody was acting like this was a real thing. I have no idea because it's on Facebook, so who knows?
Yeah. So I'm going to be really good with Photoshop. Who knows?
Right, exactly. So, yeah, I don't know if they're going to address this, but what they don't want to do is do a brand versus brand where Roman refers to the other title as a B title.
And then beat Seth handily.
And then beats him. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
I don't know how they need to stay far away from that. I have no idea if that's even a real thing. It really shouldn't be, though.
No, it shouldn't be. No. Yeah. As long as Seth is World Heavyweight Champion, he and Roman should not cross paths.
Right. Yeah.
I don't think. No. Getting back real quick to the Fatal 4-Way idea. If rather than having that match, the Bloodline Fatal 4-Way at Mania, if they do that at say, Survivor Series.
Mm-hmm.
You know, all right, that's interesting.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, there's still no doubt who's going to win. Roman's going to win. But if it's a situation where Jimmy shows up on SmackDown to acknowledge Roman is like, no, what I did do for you.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not rejoining the bloodline. I'm still out. Mm-hmm. My beef is with my brother, directly with my brother. Mm-hmm. I'm not going to help you whatsoever. Mm-hmm. And then you have maybe both. Then you have Jay maybe getting at Solo. You got to, as he was on Friday, this past Friday, SmackDown for Survivor Series. You're being manipulated. You got to get out of here. Mm-hmm. You got to get out. Maybe you got Jimmy on the other side of things, kind of doing the same thing. And they start laying the groundwork, start really building up week after week in more dramatic ways, the tension between Roman and Solo. Mm-hmm. And, you know, by November, which is still about 3 months away, three and a half months away till Survivor Series, that would make a lot of sense.
Yeah.
We're walking out of Survivor Series, Roman's alone.
Yeah, that could make a lot of sense, yeah. Yeah.
So he has to navigate the rest of the year and into Mania season without a bloodline to help him.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. No, that can be good. That could be good. By the way, I just looked it up real quick. Nothing on Google News about Survivor Series being bragging rights, so I don't think it's true.
I think so. Just made it up, probably.
Yeah. It was a good looking Photoshop, though, to be honest with you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Blake Whitehouse has a question about the World Heavyweight Championship. Specifically, if Finn had won the World Heavyweight Championship, do you think there would have been the risk of making his reign feel too similar to Roman's in the sense of constant outside interference to win?
No, I think that the general idea of like outside interference is, I think that there are different ways you could do it so that it wouldn't be like, oh, they're just doing the same thing. Because obviously what's going on in Judgment Day and what's going on in the Bloodline, although, yes, you can just point to dissension or tension or whatever, they're very different situations with their own unique characters and motivations and stuff. And so I think that I don't think that it would, that would be a criticism levied at it. I don't get that feeling.
No, but I wonder if that is maybe one reason why, it's speculation, obviously, one reason why they'd be hesitant to have heel champs both in factions with some dissension between them on both shows. And why
that could totally be. That could
Finn
totally
is a champion because it's not the same exact story. That criticism could be levied against both Finn or Priest, for that matter, and Roman being champion because there are similarities.
I think your idea earlier about Seth being champion because Roman hasn't beat him in a title top level match. I think that's probably, that's their way of being like, okay, this is, because we talked about this in the lead up to the World Heavyweight Championship tournament. You need somebody who's got one on Roman to be champion because that gives more credibility to that title. Mm-hmm. So yeah, I think I think you might be right about that though. Like the reasoning behind Seth having the title is because he's a good guy, doesn't need to cheat to win, and it's completely different from Roman's situation.
Mm-hmm. Could be. Who knows? James Smith has a question here. Says, should AEW just take Rampage and make it a women-only show?
No. Hell no. God, no.
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 No. No.
No.
No.
Why would you take your your shittiest viewed show? Like, what better way to say, yeah, women don't mean much, so we're going to put them on a shitty, on a Friday night show. Nobody watches it.
Exactly.
No, I would not do that.
No. I mean, and even if that were to happen, Tony Khan would still be booking it. Still wouldn't be any stories.
I know. Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
So, no, I mean, what AEW needs to do, and who knows if they will, focus on telling stories in the women's division.
I know it's not
more than one at a time.
Yeah.
I mean, the baseline should start with they got 5 hours of weekly television, right?
Mm-hmm. Yep.
2 hours of Dynamite, 2 hours of Collision, and 1 hour of Rampage.
Mm-hmm.
All right. So at the minimum. Minimum, give us 5 women's matches a week. At the minimum.
Yeah. Yeah.
At the absolute minimum. And just because you have a women's match doesn't mean you can't tell other stories outside of the one match.
Yeah, I know.
You got to have multiple stories. WWE's booking, we say this all the time. I know. I'm sorry for sounding like a broken record. WWE's women's division, is it fantastic? It's not always the best. But count how many stories they got going on right now.
Yeah, right.
It's like 6 or 7 or 8.
Yeah, right.
There's no reason. I mean, Tony Khan's the reason, but there's no reason why AEW couldn't do that, you know?
Yeah.
You know, and how many? I mean, off the top of my head, I can't think how many women's matches was there on Raw.
I'm looking at it. I think it was just one.
It was one. It was Shayna and Zoe, right?
Zoe, yeah, and even that's unacceptable. Like they need to do a better job than that.
Yeah. I mean, there should be 3 or 4 on an episode of Raw.
Right. Yeah.
But there was other stories playing out during the show. You had Rhea and Raquel. There's other things happening outside of the matches.
Becky and Shayna, they were setting up. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. They're setting stuff up constantly, even if there is only one match, which there should be more. Focus on doing that rather than making Rampage the women's show.
Yeah. No, I don't like that idea.
No, I don't like that idea either. And even 5 women's matches at the minimum over the course of the week is not enough. You should do more.
Yeah, there should be more. Yeah, there should do. Yeah.
Look how NXT books their women's division, or Impact.
Or Impact, yeah.
I mean, those two brands are both really good about giving equal time for every division in their show.
Yep.
And that should be the goal for any wrestling company, I feel like.
I agree.
You give equal time for every division. Every division seems important.
Yep.
That's what they should do.
Yep. DJ Fluffy Kurosaki says, is there another babyface on the roster that really needs to change up and have their own tribal chief persona, as in a giant change to their character or a massive heel turn to take them to the moon? So, of course, Roman Reigns went from guy WWE really wanted to be the next guy to a guy who's not taking that shit anymore. And he became tribal chief, and look at what's happened.
I got it, Steve. Listen to this. Drew McIntyre.
Yeah.
Now we talked about having some hesitancy about turning heel. We've seen him heel before, but I feel like if he went like super vicious, I know he's referred to himself as the Scottish psychopath, but like went super vicious. Brought up Gallus from NXT.
Ooh, I like that.
And so you got them running roughshod over SmackDown or Raw.
Yeah, that's cool.
And then you eventually get the story of Joe Coffey not wanting to play second fiddle to Drew. And then you got his brother and Wolfgang caught in the middle of all that.
Yeah, I like that.
That's some good stuff. And I think Drew could benefit with a bit of a reinvention and really bring out a vicious side of him. I think that could be a lot of fun.
Bring back the Gameskeeper. He could be their wise man.
There you go. Yeah.
He's like, wise man, have you been politicking backstage for me? He's like, I got my sheep back there. I'm like, what? No. Gameskeeper, come on, man.
I know.
I thought you were going to be my wise man. Oh, I've got some sheep back there.
I said, if you need help with the livestock, I could help you there.
Exactly. I'm looking for some hay. No, I think Drew is a great idea. That's really cool, especially with Gallus. Yeah. Cursed Hawk says with the assumption that Edge's final match will be at Mania 40, who do you realistically see as his final opponent, considering he's already fought the new big names of this generation like Roman, Seth, and Finn, and relived past feuds like Randy? I don't see it being Cena, so that bears the question, who has this honor? I'll go first. Since the tribal chief ain't giving up that title anytime soon, have Cody retire Edge. They could do a thing where it's face versus face, where Edge is like, I know you already fought Brock Lesnar, but you don't really know if you're the guy unless you beat me, the rated R superstar.
Yeah.
I'd be cool with Cody versus Edge. Why, if it's not going to be Cody versus Roman for the title, which it still might be, Cody versus Edge.
Now let me run this past you. What if Cody somehow wins that World Heavyweight Championship before WrestleMania? And of course, Edge, his kind of prime directive coming back was, I'm back here to win a title that I never lost, that I had stripped from me because I was injured.
Yeah.
And if Edge goes up to Cody and says, this is my last chance to win a title here, a championship in WWE, and if I can't do it now, I'm out. I'm gone.
Yeah.
And therefore, it's not like, oh, Cody, you retired. Edge, how dare you boo Cody for retiring one of the most popular wrestlers in WWE history.
Yeah.
Instead, it's like Edge going out in the Shield,
Yeah, right. No, I love that. We'd have a real, like, I'm sorry, I love you, or I love you, I'm sorry moment right there. Exactly. Yeah, he's got him in the crossroads. He's like, I'm sorry.
Like, sorry, Edge. I don't want to do it, but I don't want to lose this title.
Back up, another one. I'm sorry again.
I know. This title isn't finishing the story, but it's good enough for now.
Yeah, exactly. How about this for a name for Edge's final match? Matt Cardona.
Yeah, that's good.
Bring him in. So Edge is like super sentimental, right? He's super sentimental. He's like, you know, he does one of those promos where he sits down and the lighting is all dramatic and everything. And he's like, you know, I've got this one last chance. And if I don't do what I'm supposed to do, why am I even here? And then, radio. He comes out. He's got that ridiculous crown. The big, he's got half of the women's tag titles with him. And he just clowns the shit at him because that's one thing that Cardona, it's like he's the anti-sentimentalist when it comes to like his indie persona. He's just mocking the entire aspect, you know, the nature of his WWE run. Yeah. Because he used to be an edge head with Brian Myers. Brian Myers can be, you know, in his
Kurt Hawkins could come back.
Kurt Hawkins can come back and be in his corner, and have Cardona put away Edge. That I kind of like that idea better, man.
How about this? Edge, he has his celebration coming up soon in Toronto. Might it be this weekend? He's SmackDown in Toronto this weekend?
I don't know, maybe.
Or next weekend, whatever. He's like, all right, I'm done. I'm out of here. No retirement match.
Oh, wow.
And then he goes to AEW. Take on Christian in his last match.
Oh,
that's one match.
You know, it doesn't sound right. Adam Copeland? That doesn't sound
I know it
right.
doesn't. I know. Yeah. I know it doesn't sound right.
Is there a different name he can use that sounds vaguely? What if you just put a "the" in front of it? The Edge.
The Edge. Well, would he run afoul of the guitarist from U2? He's the Edge.
I think there has to be like some confusion involved for a lawsuit to happen, you know?
Oh, so like if Edge came out as the Edge wearing with a guitar.
Right, yeah, then they'd be confused.
That might be an issue.
But it's like, I would never think that the Edge from U2 would show up in AEW.
Never know.
Couldn't WWE then sue if the Edge came to AEW and used his name, the Edge, as a wrestler?
Maybe, because there would be confusion there.
There would be definitely confusion on many levels.
Yeah, there would be.
I didn't know this guy was training to be a wrestler.
I know. I didn't know that either. He's got to be 60 years old.
He's got to be pretty old, man.
CatDad7 here asks, what's your guys' stance on the impact the internet social media has had on wrestling from a business aspect but as fans as well? Personally, I'm a bit torn. I do appreciate the exposure to new wrestling because of it, but do hate how at times it takes away from the surprise aspect of it. Yeah, it's a catch-22. Mm-hmm. You know, especially when you're starting to get into New Japan, when Lariato would post gifts from New Japan shows. It was awesome waking up the morning after a New Japan show and seeing all the awesome stuff that had gone on that made me want to actually watch the show a lot more.
Yeah, right.
And that's an aspect, whether it's, you know, New Japan, indies here in the States, even just stuff that I don't watch on a regular basis, like Impact and Ring of Honor. It helps me keep up to date on that stuff.
For sure, yeah.
Seeing news and seeing little clips on Twitter or whatever.
Yeah.
But then, of course, you have the opposite side of that where, you know, when Brock Lesnar came back in 2012, rather than have it be a surprise, that would be announced it on Twitter.
Yeah.
And that doesn't even get to the tribalism aspect of professional wrestling and how social media amplifies that.
Yeah, it is damned if you do, damned if you don't. Yeah. You miss out on a lot of the lore. Myth Gifts Wrestling, for example.
Fantastic.
A fantastic follow on Twitter. I mean, if you're able to, I guess the appropriate way to do it would be to, number one, maybe dedicate, like if you have Twitter and you're like, okay, let me just set up a separate Twitter account that is exclusively used to follow. And you don't click on the For You tab, you just click on the following tab.
Yeah. Really curate your follower list.
Yeah, right. I think there's a way you can do it. I just think that it would be a difficult task to really do. But yeah, I mean, there's no way around it. You take the good with the bad. You know, the tribalism is there, and the deep dives into lore is in the exact same spot. So I think there's probably a way you can curate it, but it's probably not an easy task.
No, I don't think it is. You know, it's you got, you know, if you want to experience the world of wrestling on the internet, social media, to a certain degree, you kind of take the bad with the good. You can curate your experience best you can, but you know, I try to curate my experience so I can avoid any of the toxicity and seeps in at sometimes. So you got to make liberal use of that block button.
Yep, absolutely. Yeah. Can we lightning around a couple of questions?
Yeah, we can lightning round some of these. Luis here asked, should AEW move the scheduled start time to Collision to maybe 2 hours ahead on pay-per-view days to help with the numbers? Not either they move it 2 hours ahead full time or they don't move it at all.
None of it matters. It doesn't matter. It's they're going to be stuck with it. I didn't even see what the numbers were.
It was 400 and something.
Okay, yeah, that's bad.
Yeah.
You made your bed. You're on Saturdays. You're going to have to sleep in that particular bed.
Mm-hmm. Exactly. Jack Napier. You don't have to do it, Steve. No, you don't lightning around these.
Tip. Napier's cleaning out Axis Chemicals. Oh, dear. Who's there? Eckhart, sir. Oh, let's go.
Eckhart. Jack Napier asks, if wrestling is still around 100 years, what catchphrase do you think will stand the test of time? Ric Flair's, woo, or Stone Cold's, what?
Oh, wow. So I think the what is going to be replaced by yeah.
Yeah.
I think that might happen. So I think the woo is timeless. But of course, Larson, in 100 years, probably the catchphrase we're going to be all, if we're still alive in 100 years at 140 some odd years old, we're probably going to be doing some sort of aliens catchphrase like,
yeah.
Everybody's like, oh my God, I can't believe he's out here. Baknar is out here. He comes out with his 8 legs.
Yeah, I know. Baknar is all elite, huh?
Yeah, Baknar is all elite. They let him use his name.
Well, I guess that's kind of nebulous territory, whether a wrestling promotion could copyright an alien's name.
Is it nebulous or galactic?
Cameron Bartolazzo, besides the Bloodline story, if you can be behind the scenes of how a storyline was pitched and put together, what storyline would you choose?
Montreal Screwjob.
Yeah, good answer. Good answer.
Yeah, I feel like with the Montreal Screwjob, it was just a matter of bad communication. People probably took too long to get back to each other and shit.
I know.
Probably invasion. Probably the invasion angle. Talk about a tough hand to be dealt.
Yeah.
The invasion angle. It's like, okay, here's the deal. You got Chuck Palumbo, Sean O'Hare, and Lance Storm. Can I get a Booker T? Fine, we'll do Booker T.
What about a Goldberg? Nope, gotta wait.
No, No,
got a couple years to wait. Yeah. I'll say this: the Gargano Ciampa one.
Okay.
To see how much of that stuff leading up to the eventual turn was intentional, happenstance that they wove into the story, and what they had to go through to compensate for all the times that the story kind of got derailed because of injury and whatnot.
Yeah, right.
That would be interesting.
Yeah, that would be very interesting.
And to see if everybody involved at the end ultimately felt satisfied with how the story played out or not.
I would imagine not. It was kind of crazy just how that was at a certain point before that ridiculous call up. That Dusty Classic that year was just asinine. It was like, hey, let's take Aleister Black and put him with Ricochet. This makes total sense. And then that's how they got called up. It's like, whoa, why? You have the biggest opportunity for a WrestleMania level call up with Aleister Black, and then he just shows up with Ricochet as a tag team.
I know.
And it's like, wait, DIY, they don't like each other. Why are they together now?
Feuding right now.
Yeah, that was horrible.
Yeah, it was ridiculous. It was ridiculous. Andre Zimpel here asks, why is Larson so rude and upset with Steve getting celebrity impersonators? I see it as Steve branching out, trying to get some exposure for the podcast, and Larson's always crapping on it. To me, Steve is the one that truly cares about the growth of the podcast and the brand. True. That's where Larson can't be counted on with all the times he has said he has an impersonator, yet they never show up.
Right. That is, by the way, if you have not been able to tell, my burner account. So that's just me.
It's good to know that now. All right.
That's just me bringing that up.
All right. So don't have to read these questions from Andre Zimpel anymore. Noted.
I guess not. No.
Noted. In fact, I won't even answer that one.
Okay. Fair enough.
Let's see. Got that one.
I'm sure Andre, by the way, Andre's been around for a long time, and I'm sure he's being tongue-in-cheek.
Yes, I'm assuming that as well. Patrick Cheeseman here says, as we move away from one generation to another, who do you see leading the generation?
Humans to aliens?
Yeah, seemingly. Roman, Cody, and Rollins lead this one. Who are the next three? Well, Baknar.
Baknar is definitely one of them.
Who else?
This was Backnar, Trick Williams, and Nick Wayne.
Oh my goodness.
That faction right there. If we have any artists in the community anymore, can somebody please create the faction of Backnar, Trick Williams, and Nick Wayne for a nice Photoshop for us? Like a drawing.
Oh my goodness. Oh my goodness. Syshawn here asked, do you guys prefer a dominant heel champion or a defying all odds babyface champion? I just prefer whatever best fits the story.
I mean, yeah, I'm trying to like, you know, dude, look, the thing is there aren't very many dominant heel champions. Like when I think of Brock Lesnar, I think of a dominant heel champion. I love that. Brock is 1 in a million. It's crazy. And I understand why they might not try to go that route, or that route's not successful, because they just end up being a baby face because the crowd just loves it. But yeah, dominant heel champion. They're unique. They're rare. You don't see them very often.
Yeah, few and far between. I know. It is kind of rare to see an actual well booked defying the odds babyface.
That's true as well. Yeah.
That's actually interesting and not boring.
Yeah.
You know, that's believable rather than, you know, over the top, melodramatic.
Yeah.
So, I mean, in a lot of ways, that's two rare commodities in the world of pro wrestling. So, if done right, they both are pretty cool.
It would be so much fun to see somebody actually book what, you know, we had sort of assumed the Hangman thing was, which is a guy who was wilting under the pressure of being champion. Like, I want to explore that story. That seems pretty cool.
Yeah, I know. Maybe someday we'll get that, Steve.
Could be. Is that going to be it?
Yeah, I think that's basically everyone we got. Oh, Clown here. We can end on this one. Is there any chance we can get a second issue of the Going in Raw comic?
It's possible. I like the idea of the alien stuff.
Yeah,
it's a possibility. Something to consider. Something to think about. Sure.
Something to think about. Yeah,
something to think about. Anyways.
Maybe by 2027 when the aliens arrive.
Hey, all I need to do, I don't know, 5 pages a year, and we'll get there. Cool. All right, that's going to do it for us. Thanks, everybody, for tuning in. We appreciate it. Till next time. We'll talk to you later.
Goodbye.